Recently, I had my second MMA fight, and unfortunately, I lost. This experience has led me to a lot of thinking about what I could have done differently to win and what I can change for my next fight. After all, no one likes to lose, and after losing 2 fights in a row, I want to prove to myself that I can do better. After thinking long and hard, I started to see various flaws behind my training methods. And one of them was the fact that for my MMA fights, I have been mostly training in kickboxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. While both of these practices are great, for my striking, kickboxing training spends roughly half the time punching and the other half kicking, meaning that at the end of the day, I don't get to perfect my hand striking as much as if I would by training only hand striking. With leg kicks, I can also get away with having mediocre hands, as I can use various kicks and my long legs to keep my opponents at bay or to distract them with my kicks to make way for my hand strikes. This is where I decided that I need to try boxing, as in boxing, you are forced to become a master at hand striking, since there's no other way you can win a boxing fight. I also realized that this would challenge and push me to the next level. Since training with boxers with my kickboxing background, I would be at a disadvantage, as the boxers had been working on hand striking solely, of course, and footwork, which likely has to be more elaborate than kickboxing's too, since you can't use leg kicks to overcome your opponent and you need to find openings in a different way, meaning that under their rule sets, boxers would definitely be better than I am, forcing me to become much better at hand striking without cutting any corners. I was also hoping that a boxing coach would have more developed and refined advice on hand striking for the same reasons. Whether he will, there was no other way to find out than to try boxing. So, to get started, I enrolled in a private boxing class, the first ever in my life. In the beginning, I was worried that there will be many differences between kickboxing and boxing striking, and that I will be far behind of what's expected from a striker at a boxing gym. This concern translated into me being stiffer than I usually am. I was also doing my best to adapt the differences between boxing and kickboxing as best as I could. So when the coach asked me if I want to start from the very basics, I enthusiastically said yes. First of all, I had to narrow down my stance, and my stiffness was visible. But after some time, I started loosening up. I then mentioned to the coach that one of the main points of feedback that I received after my second MMA fight was that I was completely missing head movement, so I asked if we could work on that. That's when the coach brought out a rope that he hung across the ring, where I had to continue to work on my footwork and some bobbing and weaving. At first, I was not upright enough, a common mistake for tall people, as we try to make ourselves smaller to feel more part of the crowd. So I appreciated that the coach pointed out this mistake to me. We then started adding some strikes, where I received a piece of golden advice. The coach pointed out that I was too focused on individual strikes, emphasizing each one too much, instead of letting my hands go as a combination. This led us to a conversation that many people strike like this at training, but that's not how they strike during a fight. And why would you train something the way you don't use it in a fight? This concept I liked a lot, and we continued working on it practically on pads. The coach continuously kept pointing out that I was letting go my hands in my strikes too slow, while loading them up too much. I was also not connecting my strikes fast enough, but the best part about it was not only that it made a lot of sense, but also that once the coach pointed that out to me, soon enough, I was able to change the way I strike and became so much faster in my strikes and combinations. This was almost shocking to me, as it showed that my striking potential was inherently much greater than I was allowing it to be. But I only needed that specific push to improve my striking that much. Of course, there was still much more work to do, as the coach also kept improving my strikes, showing the little mistakes I was doing and teaching me to move my head out of the way with every strike. Our training also led us to another highly valuable conversation about the importance of simplicity, as we came back to look at how I exaggerated each of my strikes as I was trying to perfect them. But the coach's point was that that is not the way we fight, and yet again, why would we train something the way we are not going to use it? So with more striking training, the coach kept making my strikes more and more simple, yet at the same time also more efficient. We then came back to doing some more work with the rope, where I continued to work on connecting my strikes in a fast way, as we then added additional strikes, where I kept inquiring for more details on how to do them well, and the coach showed me how I can use my footwork to load up my strikes without wasting time or losing balance. I was also surprised that the coach wasn't too critical about what I knew already. And once he pointed out my mistakes and I fixed them, he told me that I was actually doing very well, which was exciting for me to hear, as I thought I was going to do much worse in a new discipline. Of course, this was just the first time I did pure boxing, so I still needed much more training to make these new discoveries my own. And on the day, there was also no sparring yet. Another game changer. But I was excited about the good beginning. Also, before finishing the class, I received another valuable piece of advice. This time on my shadowboxing. As the coach was observing my shadowboxing during the warm-up, he pointed out to me that the way I shadowboxed was more or less aimless, and he was right. While I had some thought about what I was intending to work on during my shadowboxing, in reality, I was mostly just throwing out random strikes and aimlessly moving around. Something that I guess can be fine, but the coach pointed out that by bringing in more purpose and intention to my shadowboxing, it would become much more valuable, as I would be working on adapting to a whole scenario instead of doing separate strikes here and there. His suggestion to me this time was to focus only on my jab and to imagine that I'm trying to hold the center of the ring while keeping my opponent at bay. Having this image and intention, I felt my shadowboxing becoming much more valuable, inspiring me to continue to work in this direction. To accompany the shadowboxing, we also added some shuffling around the cage, while changing directions as fast as I could whenever the coach said so, and finally, I wrapped up the training with some stretching. Surely, this was just the beginning of a long journey, but as in my country we have a saying, a good beginning is half of the job. And this training indeed showed me that by focusing on each individual combat sport one at a time, and by challenging myself to become good at each of them, I may potentially raise my fighting ability to the next level. And of course, soon enough, I will also have to take the next level of challenge by starting to spar with boxers at their game. If you want to see how crazy Muay Thai training gets in Thailand, click on this video right here. Thanks for watching, and as always, I wish you to own your journey.